Hi, I'm Taylor Oxley, producer for the LabVIEW Experiment podcast, and today I'm bringing you your Season 2 bonus episode. Sam and Steve Watts talk about a new tool available for LabVIEW developers. We hope you enjoy.
So I am here today with Steve Watts for a special episode of the LabVIEW Experiment. We're going to talk about this training initiative that Steve is working on with Derek Bomarito, and I imagine a few others as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys have planned, Steve?
So this started off as we were looking for where there were gaps in the LabVIEW ecosystem. This came up in a few user group meetings. So where are the gaps? And for me, the gaps were the ability to just sit in a room with 12 other people and play with LabVIEW for people who hadn't had the opportunity. So like hands-on. So that's where it started from. Is like, well, hell, what's stopping us doing that then? And it transpires, it's hardware and licenses and things like that that are the issue. And that then moved on to, well, how do we facilitate that then? Because we got the community edition, and the LabVIEW Community Edition is a huge gift. NI has really given us a gift with the community edition. And the fact it's just a license and you get full access to it for non-commercial use is great. Which I then started to talk this idea back and forth to people. Well, how do we use this then? How do we make cheap hardware? How do we make it zero cost if required? Because I'm very into. I don't think LabVIEW should be just for wealthy countries. I think that anyone should be able to, who has access to a computer and some internet, should have the opportunity to learn LabVIEW and teach LabVIEW. So I'm taking the view really from the perspective of people wanting to put on the hands-ons, not actually doing the education. I want to provide the tools so that people can put on hands-ons in anywhere, any place in the world that has internet access. And it's the more I kind of looked into it, the more possible it was. Because download speeds actually around the world are pretty good. It's quite surprising how fast download speeds are out in the wilds of India and the like. I thought, that's going to be a problem. We need to make sure this is a tiny thing, but it's not actually as big a problem as I expect it to be. So we were looking at a download. I started looking at
people downloading, Steve. Actually, sorry if you.
Right. So, well, because I want to download an entire environment, and I don't want it to be Windows because Windows is a license and a cost. So what I wanted to be able to download was a complete Linux setup with LabVIEW installed, links to training materials within the environment, and any tools needed to create training materials in the environment as well. So, and then the other thing I wanted was I wanted to use hardware. I wanted, if people wanted to use hardware, I wanted it to be hardware. But of course, it had to be very cost constrained. I set a budget of less than $20. And finally, I wanted it to be zero cost if you wanted to. So every bit of hardware had to have an emulator. And I wanted it to be industry standard. So if we're doing a course, then we're dealing with industry standards. So if anything you learn with our hardware, you could then apply to an actual piece of hardware. Okay, so these parameters sort of led to us doing experiments and talking to NI and saying, is this possible? Can we, first of all, distribute a virtual machine with LabVIEW installed on it, ready to go? And they said, that's okay. There's nothing in the license that says stopping you doing that. The next question was, can we modify the getting started window or can we modify the getting started window so we can install materials from GitHub? They said, well, there's actually a very easy way to do that. You just modify the XML file from the getting started window and you can actually set any links you want. So that was really cool. Darren Nattinger, he put me onto that one. So thanks, Darren. So this is a real team effort. There's everyone's been sort of chipping in. So Eric Refflett was made me improve my argument, shall we say, with his robust inquiries at GDevCon, and that was really good. That it was really helpful. So he was sort of saying, well, you need to refine your ideas, you need to refine what you're asking, and essentially what I was saying, well, the license, the community edition license, should be okay for putting on hands-on training for the recipients of that hands-on training. It's a bit more woolly for the person giving the training if you're saying, are you developing commercial software with this? Well, you're not. You're giving training. So you could even say that the trainer could have a community edition license. Then you would use a virtual machine management system, something like VirtualBox. I've tested it on. We've also tested it on VMware. And what I want to do is install that as a whole installable, and it's a thing called an OVA, which is an exported virtual machine, and it works fine. So I picked OpenSUSE, which we're probably going to change. So I picked OpenSUSE Linux, installed LabVIEW 2022, did all my work. This is the prototype. So we're at the prototype stage now. I want people to test this and to build on it. So really, I'm interested in building something, not the actual materials or that. I want to build the structure for the materials and all the mechanisms so that people can say, okay, I want to build a different virtual machine, this one with Ubuntu or something like that. And I don't want that to be a barrier. So we can kick down those doors and we can host those things and we can build on this.
Steve, this is actually striking something. So I'm trying to teach continuous integration, and it would seem to me that you could have two virtual machines, one being your development machine, one being the runner, and you could spin up a third virtual machine that is the GitLab host.
Yep.
And you could have it all running. I mean, it'd be kind of hard to do that on like if you're trying to democratize it, right, and make it available to everybody, you'd probably have to have a pretty powerful computer to run 3 virtual machines at once, plus the operating system.
You can do. I mean, Linux is pretty
lightweight. Yeah.
Yeah, you only use 2 cores.
That many Windows machines would be crazy, but that many Linux machines.
Yeah, you can do it in 2 cores, and I've stripped it out. I mean, we've got work to do on making it even more minimal.
Well, the other thing is, if I was doing a class, I'd only really need one GitLab server. It could be and I could just or we could all use GitLab.com too.
Well, and a network switch is very, very cheap. So you can have a localized switch and have your server as a server and do it like that. Or everyone, shared Wi-Fi is very cheap, and the networking is really very easy and cheap to do now for all of these things. And if you just bridge the network of your virtual machine, it can be part of a bigger network. Outside of the computer. So you can open up for training and from the instrument point of view. So let's talk hardware. So we're using a Pico, a Raspberry Pi Pico 2040, which is $4. No, it's probably $5. It's about £4. And we're using a little motherboard, breadboard thing, which is like $10, and we've got an analog speaker, which is another $5. And that's it. And then you can do all the experiments in that. And because we've made the drive, well, I say Derek has made the drivers for the Raspberry Pi, and he's set up a Visa overlay. So it's just Visa. Okay. Which is something we really wanted to do. So he just wanted it to be standard Visa. And what that means is that I can write and I have written an emulator. So I've got a Raspberry Pi Visa emulator that uses the same set of commands as the actually Raspberry Pi. So you don't need the hardware. It's nice to have the hardware, the satisfaction of a blinky light.
Yeah.
With children like that, I just need to do that. But, if zero cost is your aim, you can use the emulator. And because it's a switch to TCP emulation, so the Visa, the Raspberry Pi uses a UART, so you just pass it through into the virtual machine, so it just comes up as a COM port. But the emulator is a LAN-based emulator, so you set it up as a TCP or whatever it is, so like a LXI device. And because you do that, going back to your multiple virtual machines, you could actually have several virtual machines running with several of these emulated and working independently as well. So there's a lot you can do with this little device is good. You know, you get I've limited it because so the way it works is Derek's done a set of LabVIEW drivers, Visa drivers, and he's done the overlay. But the Visa drivers are for a microcontroller, which is slightly more complex as a device than what I wanted my Visa driver to be. I wanted it to be like a little DAC card.
Mm-hmm.
So I've overlaid on top of his Visa driver my own set of drivers, which are just say you've got 4 outputs and a beep, you've got 4 input buttons, digital inputs, 4 digital outputs, 2 analog inputs, 1 digital analog output, and that's all you've got. So, and then you can build something from that. So the design fits very nicely then, because that means we can go off and Derek can add things to his Visa driver set, which he's hopefully going to, because we've got plans. But I don't have to change all my documentation every time he updates his drivers, because I've got my layer above it, which is my driver set. So it works very nicely from a design perspective. And this is what I mean by creating a process, is that I'm trying to make sure that all these things are covered, so that if people follow my process, you can build your own course. And that's what I want people doing, is building their own courses.
So I have a question. On the hardware side, you just have the Pico. Like, do you need like some buttons and LEDs and other stuff with it, or
yeah, that was the other kit I was talking about.
Okay. Oh, so there is like
not very good for your audio podcast, but I'll hold it up. If you go on to random ramblings on LabVIEW design, my latest, the Sneaky Peek article has got a link to all the hardware.
Okay.
You get it, but
so you would buy a Raspberry Pi and then a little box that has a bunch of other little accessories for it.
So
oh, that's the breadboard. Okay, so the breadboard comes with all those things built in. Okay.
Yeah, cool. So apart from the Raspberry Pi, and then it comes with an extra. That's about £12, I think. That's £5, so $7.
Yeah.
And the Raspberry Pi is £4, so $5. So it's not under $20. It's under 30, but it's still
close enough.
Yeah, it's still pretty good. So it's and we could probably, if it carries on and expands and there's demand and people sponsor and want to get involved, there's no reason why you couldn't have a custom board.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of against my initial principle, which is to just buy stuff from shops. But if you can do that for much less, then that's cool. The other thing is it doesn't have to be, we could do a branch in the course and it could be Arduino. It doesn't have to be a Raspberry Pi. Mm-hmm. It's just that was fit the first build, it was easy to use. The other thing is that we want everything to be open source. So my emulators are all open source.
Everything but LabVIEW.
Yeah, we can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
I'm trying. we wish.
Yeah.
But all the C that Derek Bomarito has kindly put so much effort into to make the Raspberry Pi overlay. We want to put that all up. So we want to build another virtual machine, or even include it as the same part of this virtual machine, with all the tools to change and modify the overlay as well. So we want all that open source as well. And all the course materials is obviously open source. We're using open document format, so no Microsoft. And all of that is loaded on the virtual machine, so you can edit the documents and push it back if you wish. So again, all open source. We've also included a thing called Pinter, which is a graphical program, and it allows you to do overlaid graphics. So there's overlaid graphics of these with wiring diagrams that you can just modify. Again, it's all there. It's open source. If you want to do a new wiring diagram, modify it, upload it, merge it into the GitHub. Do the whole GitHub thing. And I mean, future plans are interesting because Derek is less interested in this part of the project, which is the putting on hands-on stuff. He's interested because he wants to bring people into the community, but he's less interested. What he's really interested in is having a use for those Raspberry Pi to LabVIEW overlays. So we've hit a slight roadblock with what our next stage was. We wanted to do communications. We wanted to open up one of the communication ports. Because Raspberry Pi's got a couple of SPIs or I2C ports. It'd be kind of nice to have a Visa command that sent data out of those. So we're still working on that mechanism. We quite like to do triggered readings and inputs and outputs. So it acts a bit like more like an oscilloscope, or to do triggered acquires. And that's the other thing, because we use just Visa. If you learn how to program one of these, you can program an oscilloscope or a power supply.
Because you're just sending like Skippy type commands or something.
It's just Skippy. It's Skippy.
Cool.
And that's it. So we are at this stage. There's a link. So GCentral are hosting. Thank you very much, Chris Cellino and team. So Christian Butcher set up the link and share and download for the virtual machine, and it's a considerable size. It's 5 or 6 gig. So there's a cost but there's a cost involved in hosting.
Yeah. Well, most of my Windows virtual machines for doing LabVIEW stuff, I start out making like 100 gigs. I never use all of it, but like,
no. Well, we
easily 30, 40 gigs just for Windows.
I think there's great. I mean, I've taken a lot of shortcuts to get it out, because I just want to get it out. I've not done the trying to make it perfect thing yet. There's a lot more automation that can happen with, when you download it, you should be able to go press this button and it distributes everything. If you look at the manual, the tutor instructions, which tells you how to set it all up, it's probably about 10 pages too long, really. We could automate some of that.
So this is available right now. So if I wanted to use it in my upcoming CI/CD class, I could just.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Cool. Key thing is, it's a desktop. You don't have to use normal Linux security. You don't have to get bent out of shape. Just log in as root, do everything as root. Linux works lovely as a desktop development system if you do everything from root. Most Linux people go, oh God, don't do that.
Yeah, that was my initial reaction as well.
You're using it as a desktop. It's like using admin in Windows. As a programmer, I'm more than capable of being the admin of my desktop. And as a programmer, you're more than capable of being, using root to develop stuff.
See, maybe it's just that I've done more Linux stuff lately. Like when I worked at Westinghouse, that was definitely my inclination was I wanted to be root and I wanted to control everything. And I've gotten used to just not having control of everything now on Linux. But it's easy enough. You just do sudo or whatever you.
And the point of it is most Linux stuff is servers left on their own. And so my
servers, you definitely don't want to do that. That is bad.
You don't do anything in root, and you don't leave it in root, and you don't log in as root, and all the rest of it is. So you just don't do it. It's a desktop. It's a disposable desktop. What's the worst going to happen? If you destroy it? Well, just download another one.
Yeah. That's good. Cool.
And that's the idea. Is disposable in a way.
So wrapping things up, what exactly what is your need or ask of the community, or is there anything you want us to do?
I just want people to know it's there. I want people to build on it. I want courses. So if you've had courses used internally in your companies, and you think they'd be useful for other people, just come talk to us. And all that material is there to be used by someone. If you want to change added different languages, expanding that kind of thing. I want people anywhere to be able to learn LabVIEW. And that's really the tagline, is we want LabVIEW to be available to anyone, anywhere. And that's really, what we really want from it. And thanks to Nancy Henson for the tagline, because that was hers. And I stole it immediately. And it's already a big team effort. I'm for my sins, I'm on the front of this, just because I drive things. But Derek's put so much work into it. The guys in GCentral are really putting work into it. Q designed the logo, and they're really enthusiastic, and people have really bought into this. I mean, one statistic is, if you look at my blog, you can look at the analysis. The first blog where I said we're doing this is now at 20,000 sort of hits, whereas its surrounding blogs, the blogs either side of it, are sort of 500. It's just gosh, because and it's really, there is a need, I think, to be able to do this, but people have got to know it's out there, and you've got to approach it as a, it's all free. You can do with it what you like, but also you can expand on it and it'll become more useful. Why not have an Arduino version? Why not put some work into making a very lightweight virtual machine setup? Why all this work I can't do? I've spent 6 months of this year doing free stuff for the community. So a bit like you, Mr. Taggart, if the community would like to give us work, that would be really cool.
Well, hopefully the community takes it up and gives you guys some help and helps you promote it. So thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you for giving me the time, mate. I really appreciate it.
Great. That's it for today's episode of the LabVIEW Experiment. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments or questions, head over to thelabviewexperiment.com and drop me a note. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @TheLVExperiment.